Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Mortgage Process. I am, of course, your host, Greg Wareham. We got a great guest for you today who's going to talk about coaching and mentoring and different part-time, full-time agents. Vin Frana, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Well, thanks for taking the time, Vin.
Of course.
So, Vin, let's get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, so Vin, when you look at part-time real estate agents, I know you've worked with a lot of them over the course of time. You're a real estate coach. What do you think are some of the really important things that people need to focus on if they're deciding to do the job from 5 to 9?
I mean, the biggest one is time management. I mean, even the 9 to 5 agents have trouble dealing with that. But when you only have a 4-hour period to do your full workday, you really have to be on top of everything.
Okay. Walk us through that. So what does the time management blocking look like for somebody?
So it's establishing certain periods of time where you absolutely have to get something done. So most agents, they take from, say, 9 to 11. This is a full-time agent. They do their prospecting calls. So they're calling everybody and their mother to find out who wants to sell some real estate. When you're working from 5 to 9, you have 4 hours total to do your workday. You're doing showings. You're doing, writing contracts, all that fun stuff to where, so now you got to really be focused in that short amount of time.
How do I compress? Yeah, because I'm compressing an 8-hour day down into 4 hours. How do I compress it and still have success?
Well, so a great resource for that is actually the 4-hour work week. That talks about how to compress your time into a shorter amount of time. So, and that's by, who is it, Tim Ferriss, I think?
Okay, 4-hour work week, it's a book on it.
Yes, that's a book. It's an audio book as well. So when you're doing your commute to your 9 to 5, you can be learning how to shorten your workday. But somebody who is only working 4 hours a day in real estate, they can compress it into the biggest, most important things are prospecting. So that's getting the new leads that eventually turn into business. And then it's really focusing on your client relationships. So that's doing showings. That's, we miss out on an offer. Here's a $20 bouquet, and oh my God, I'm so sorry we missed out. We'll get the next one. It's making sure that you are so on top of your clients that they don't go to someone who's a full-time agent.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you got to be super intense about it over that 4-hour time frame.
Absolutely.
So number one being prospecting, and then working with the clients that you're already working with. So should you fit a client into your schedule, or are you trying to accommodate the client's needs, right?
So the biggest way to do it is to make their needs become what you can fulfill.
Yeah, great. That's a great point.
Yeah. So most people are working 9 to 5 anyway. So they're not going and seeing houses at noon. You don't have to rearrange your workday schedule at your day job in order to satisfy the needs of your clients. COVID's kind of screwed that up a little bit with how many people are work from home. But that's when you get into, your groups and your networks at your office. So one thing that's great about my coaching group is that if somebody is working during a time that their client needs to see a house, well, there's 8 other agents that'll step in and help you out.
Yeah, that's a great point. It kind of gives you that team concept and that sense of community.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's one way to kind of get around the time restrictions that you have. But most people are looking at houses during the week from 5:30 on. So,
right.
It's not that difficult. It's really making sure that you still prospect.
And there's a certain amount of a mental hurdle for an agent working part-time to say, hey, listen, if I can't show the house until 6 o'clock because I'm doing my prospecting from 5 to 6, the consumer's okay with that.
Yeah.
But we feel that it's not. I got to accommodate and jump through it.
Yeah, you're in another appointment. An appointment can be your 2-year-old niece's birthday party. That's an appointment.
Right.
Your client doesn't have to know that you're out at a barbecue. You're at an appointment, but you'll make sure to get them into your schedule.
A couple really great nuggets that I'm taking out of this are, one, if you're going to do this thing from 5 to 9, you have to time block. It's critical part of doing it. You have to prospect, and then you have to fulfill your client's needs. And you have to be able to do it on your schedule that works for you most effectively. I love the other thing that you said as well, Vin, about being part of a community, right? So if you're a coach or if you're part of Vin's coaching team, Well, you have a community that can help you facilitate the needs as well.
Absolutely. And then you have obviously me and some of the more experienced agents in the group that are the resource for the questions of, well, what is a CO? What is, there's so many different, like, what is this contingency, an appraisal contingency? Well, what does that mean? I mean, we're talking mortgages now, but if you waive an appraisal contingency, the appraisal still happens. It's just that you have to come up with the cash.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of part-time agents don't necessarily understand because they're not exposed to the conversations in the office that are happening every day because they can't be exposed to them. So they have no clue what waiving an appraisal contingency means or if their clients can even do it.
Right. Well, that's a great point that you bring up. If you're part-time, you really shouldn't be out on the island by yourself somewhere. You want to be part of a group. You want to work with others to be able to facilitate the schedule, the needs of your consumer. You're going to get a prospect. What's the biggest challenge that they have part-time?
Part-time, it's 100% time management, and then it's consistency. Because not only, real estate itself is extremely tiring. You're dealing with emotions. You're dealing with a lot of money all the time. But now take that with someone who just worked a 9-to-5 shift somewhere else. And now they have to be on their A game for the next 4 hours.
Sure.
So, I would say probably time management and consistency are the two biggest hurdles for my part-time agents.
You know something? A lot of people work part-time jobs that they have to go to. Real estate part-time job, that's a job you can make a lot of money at if you're disciplined for that 4 hours out of the day.
Absolutely. The average commission in our market area is like $10,000, and that's at 2% commission.
Wow.
So
you do one of those a month, it's $120,000 a year.
Exactly. Doing a part-time job, 4 hours a day.
Yeah, it's unheard of.
Yeah, 20-hour-a-week job making $120,000.
Do you find a lot of people that come in and want to do this part-time? Is their end goal trying to do this full-time?
I would say about 90% of my coaching clients that are part-time.
They love their career.
No, they want to switch to full-time real estate because they want the freedom.
Yeah.
Obviously, what you put into it is what you get out of it.
Yep.
But the ability to go to your kid's soccer game or, go on that vacation for a week, it's huge. And that's the advantage of being a full-time real estate agent.
Yeah, you can see it, though, because it kind of plays into the whole American dream. We're working in corporate America, and we're all getting burned out and worn down by it because at the end of the day, especially if it's a publicly traded company, it's all about the shareholders. People feel like you're commoditized, right?
Yeah.
So you look at it and say, all right, what's some ancillary income I can drive? You go into real estate, and as soon as you start to get in, especially when you close a couple of deals, you're like, oh, my gosh, I can make a lot of money doing this. You want to go full-time, and you want to have that freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think, like at what point in time, Vin, is it the right time for someone to go and be full-time?
That is quite the loaded question.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
So
I got a 6-shooter.
There's definitely a few factors. So number one, you need to know how much you personally need in reserves to not make any money for 6 months.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. And then you also have the amount of leads coming in. You're getting one lead a month. Maybe you're not ready to go full-time because you're not getting enough business to sustain working full-time. And there are plenty of ways to ensure that you can get that. You can buy leads. You can create your own.
Yeah.
There are services that give you the telephone numbers for whatever house that you want.
Here, I'm going to peel this back a little bit.
Yeah,
so the
absolutely.
number one thing, and I think it's a fantastic point for the people that are listening out there today, is if you're going to go be a full-time real estate agent, you have to have 6 months of reserves.
Yeah,
right?
at least. That's minimum.
So if you got a $10,000 a month nut, well, you better have $60,000. And I'm being a little aggressive in the numbers to exaggerate the point. So that's number one.
But are you being that aggressive, though? because now you also have, let's say you have a mortgage. So what's the average mortgage right now in Monmouth County?
You're probably $3,500 a month.
Yeah, so $3,500 a month. That doesn't include your bills. So let's tack on another $750, including your groceries. And that's eating ramen at least once a week.
Right. And you have no kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then you obviously need to pay for your car. You need to pay for gas. You need to pay for so many things. So $10,000 a month isn't that crazy of a nut to have.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And now you're tacking on top of it business expenses.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of direct mail personally.
Okay.
100 letters is $87.
And you can't mail them just once.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So I send between 100 and 400 letters a week.
Yep.
So we're anywhere between $87 and
so how many? No, but let's go through the math. So you said you're doing about $300 a month just in direct mail.
Exactly.
It's $3,600 a year.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a week.
That's a week.
Yeah.
300. So it's $1,200 a month. I mean, that's almost 10 grand per year. It's over 10 grand per year. 12 grand plus per year. I mean, that's a big number you got to factor in there, especially for the first 6 months. If you're cutting it in half,
absolutely,
you got to have $7,000 extra. So, I was just, as you're talking about it, Vin, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I'm coming on as a part-time agent, a great strategy would be, all right, let me close X amount of deals, put that money in reserve to make my full-time move over into real estate.
And another big one that I forgot to mention, health insurance.
Yeah.
Because as a real estate agent, you're a 1099.
Right.
You don't get health benefits.
Yep.
So now you have, at one point I was on subsidized health insurance, and it was still $400 a month.
Right. Yeah, there's things you really got to weigh in. And you have to talk to people that have been down the path. So we know we have to have the reserve money, and then you bring up lead flow out of the gate.
Absolutely.
You got to make sure, what's your plan, right? What's my plan? All right, so I've had some success. I've spoken to my friends and family, and I've been able to save enough money to have reserves to make the leap into the financial freedom of real estate full time.
Absolutely.
But now how am I going to really drive the business? Because there's only so many friends and family that I can go after. Talk to that. I know you do some direct mailing. What are some of the other strategies, Vin?
Well, so now you're doing direct mail. My favorite thing to do is something called circle prospecting. So doesn't even have to be your listing. Doesn't even have to be your company's listing. If somebody's house goes under contract, guess who's telling every single neighbor? You pick up the phone. We call it smile and dial. And you just say, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. Did you know your neighbor at 123 Main Street just went under contract? Do you know anybody interested in moving to the neighborhood or moving out of the neighborhood?
So it's kind of indirectly asking them. Yeah, that's great. How much does that cost?
So, obviously, your phone bill.
Yep.
And then there are certain free ways to get the telephone numbers, but there are a lot of services that charge, anywhere from $75 to $150 a month,
right,
just for the list of telephone numbers.
Yeah, but you see, now that's an investment that's worth it.
Absolutely.
As long as you're trained on how to do it. This is again why, from a coaching standpoint, why it's so important, right? You don't want to do this stuff all willy-nilly, right? You got to have a plan. This is how I'm going to attack it. You want to hear people do it successfully because it helps you fine-tune your skills with it. And really, for a very limited investment, you can reach out to unlimited amount of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my program gives me 3,000, they're called geo leads a month. So I can pick an address, 123 Main Street, and say, I want the closest 500 homes to that address to go call. And that was a huge part of my business in the beginning.
Okay.
I, for one, don't like being screamed at constantly. So
what do you mean? I love it.
Listen, it amps me up every once in a while, but 2 hours a day.
That changes when you have kids.
At.
You just get used to it.
But so I've shifted my business more towards direct mail because I'm getting people that go, come list me.
Right.
And that's a very rewarding feeling as well. And you got to earn that. You're not getting right into the business. You're not getting the come list me calls typically.
All right. Well, let's make this cost effective for people. So now you have your reserves, trying to make that move over to full time. We know that for a limited investment, you can really get an unlimited amount of data for you to reach out and circle prospect in an area to see if there's people interested in listing their property, or if they know anyone who's interested in listing their property. You can go the direct mail route as well. As you start to build more reserves, you can make that type of an investment.
Absolutely.
And then what else are we looking to do from there, Ben?
So we have the cold calling. We have the direct mail. We have word of mouth. Joining a chamber of commerce is huge for producing business. It's all about networking. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And, a mentor of mine, her big kind of slogan was you want to deal with high net worth individuals.
Sure.
Because that's where you make the most money. Listen, first-time home buyers are great. I love them. They're some of the most rewarding clients to work with. But selling the $1 million home is also really rewarding, too, for your bank account.
Sure. You know, I want to talk about the Chamber of Commerce because I think that's a big miss for salespeople.
Yeah.
You know, salespeople have a tendency to get into a transactional mindset at times. And, you know, it's part of their overall wiring, right? You're looking for the shiny thing all the time, so you get transactional with things you're looking to do. So you join the Chamber of Commerce. What's the opportunity in an organizational group like that?
So let's say the chamber is 50 members strong. Not unusual for a chamber of commerce. How many people do you think each person in that group knows?
Least
just on average.
10.
Okay, 10. You now have access to 500 people.
Right.
That you would not have had access to before. And you're not necessarily selling the chamber members. You're selling their friends and family. And you become a trusted individual because of the relationships that you build. And that's a key word. Key word there is relationships.
And relationships take time.
Yes.
They take fostering. They take development. They take caring. They take empathy. You're right, because a business relationship, in a lot of ways, not that much different from a personal relationship. You have to treat them in the same fashion.
Absolutely.
See, and that's a great slow drip. That's going to take 6 months to build that.
And that's why you build that 6 months of reserves to where if you have $0 coming in, you're fine.
You know, I've noticed people at times when they come into full-time real estate that when they're a little bit overwhelmed, a lot of bit overwhelmed, and you know they kind of almost get, what's the expression, analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, right?
Yep.
Where they come in, they're like so overwhelmed with stuff. You know, how do I put this in an organizational fashion where I'm being productive 8 to 10 hours per day? What type of advice could you give around that?
Well, so it's creating, you know, your direction that you're going in, and that's a place where I step in is I take down their goals. Let's say they want to make $120,000 a year.
Yep.
Well, we break that down into how many people they have to speak to in order to make that. And then it goes to how many contracts do they have to write? How many closings do they have to hit their goals? And then I flip it around another way. And I actually saw this from a Grant Cardone video. He was talking about your first goal should be $860,000 or whatever. Which I think is a little extreme for some people.
Yeah.
You know, that's a huge number.
Sure.
But he broke it down from, okay, well, you could ask for $1 from 869,000 people.
Right.
Or you could ask for 10. Keeps breaking it down until it's, you know, you only have to talk to 869 people. That'll give you $1,000 each. Average commission in our area, again, is $10,000. So if you want to make $120,000, you only have to work with 12 people.
Right.
Close 12 people. But, you know, the numbers, when you start talking about leads, get bigger. But when you start talking about number of transactions, it gets smaller.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm an analytical person by nature because I am a big believer in you can only manage what you can measure, right? There has to be metrics behind what you're doing. So if you'd be kind enough, let's walk through an example. So if you want to make $120,000 a year or $10,000 a month, that's 12 transactions.
Yeah.
So how many people do you think you need to speak to? And I know it varies based on skill set, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can use percentages.
Okay.
So let's say for a really good agent, probably about 3 to 5% of the people that you talk to will actually make a purchase from you that year.
Okay.
So if we want to make 10 transactions, let's call it, that would be...
So your 10 transactions.
So 3% of
10, 3.
Well, divide 10 by 3% is.
Well, you figure that's what, 300 basically.
Yeah. So
right?
300 is probably
300 real conversations.
Real conversations, not you're going on
a little more than
Facebook Messenger and you're like. It's like a multi-level marketing scheme where you're like, I just got into real estate.
But you know what? That brings up another really good point. Don't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Because people do that all the time. I've been managing, coaching. It's been hundreds, probably 1,000 salespeople over my career.
Yeah.
People lie to themselves.
All the time.
We do it sometimes. You lie to yourself, right? You're trying to check it off your list. Like, oh, well, I did this activity today, but did you really?
Yeah. Well, let's say you're trying to do a bold week.
Yeah.
You have to have 20 conversations a day.
Yeah.
5 days a week.
Yep.
So that's 100 people you're having conversations with.
Yeah.
not 20 calls made.
That's right.
Not 20 answering machines.
Yep.
It's 20 two-way conversations.
Right.
And I know I lie to myself all the time with that. It's like, oh, I had a great conversation. I was on call number 17.
Right.
That's 20 for the day. But that's not how you run a business. And when you're in real estate, you are running a business.
Yeah.
It's not as, even if you do it as a side hustle, you have your own company. You are your brand.
Yeah.
And you have to really treat it like a business.
Sure.
You got to pay your taxes.
Yeah.
So many people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point. You got to set aside that money to pay your taxes as well. You know, I'm going to hop back into the analytics for a second.
Perfect.
So if we're going to do 10 deals, because nice even number, and 3% conversion rate, that's probably, let's call it 350 real conversations you need to have. Well, if you're going to have 350 real conversations, that's how many people do you need, how many calls do you need to make to have those conversations? Right?
Well, so the conversations are probably 3% of the calls.
Right. So 3%. So you're talking, you can make a lot of calls, thousands and thousands of calls.
Absolutely.
Right?
And they don't necessarily have to be calls.
Right.
They can be, you post something on your Instagram and somebody says, oh, that's really cool. You start having a two-way conversation. That's a contact. That's a legitimate conversation. When it becomes two ways about real estate, that's when you start having the real conversations.
Yeah.
One of my coaching clients, she's actually been with me the longest. She re-signs her contract every year. A lot of her business comes from her just posting on her Instagram. She has a huge network. She ran a nonprofit. Like, she was a director of a nonprofit for helping children.
Okay.
And her sphere is huge. So when she posts something on Instagram, people see it.
Right.
And it's not about, don't be the salesperson. I just sold another house. I just sold another house. It's about, I just helped this family. I just helped this recent divorcee that's going through the worst time in their life.
Yeah.
And I help them have a little bit of happiness.
Yeah, you make a great point with that. And you see that all the time in the industry. I mean, yes, you have to promote your successes so people know you're a successful person. It's not about us.
No.
It's about them.
Absolutely.
And that's a big miss you see a lot in the industry. It's about how you help that person, what you did for that person, how you changed their life. How you educated them through the process. Everything that goes into being a real estate agent, being on the mortgage side, it's not about you closing a deal.
No, who cares?
Nobody
cares.
Yeah.
They care if they like you.
Yep.
Like, that's how you get clients. They care if they like you and that you have somewhat of an experience. They don't care that you sold 100 houses last year. They want to know what you can do for them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to kind of wrap up our analytics. I'm doing math in my head while we're talking.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, so if in the big picture, the number that I came up with is you really need to have about 30 contacts per day.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, whether or not that's email or that's on Facebook or that's phone calls, to be able to have particular conversations about real estate to be able to hit that goal. Yeah. So it's not unachievable when you start to chunk it down into the numbers. 25 to 30 points of contact per day.
Yeah.
And the reality is you're not getting all those people on the phone or having detailed conversations. So how much time does that really take?
And if you get a dialer, it's even quicker.
There you go.
An auto dialer.
There you go. Yeah. And that's something, again, from a coaching standpoint that people need to know about. How do you make that easier?
Yeah, exactly.
So what other nuggets could you give us, Vin, for someone in real estate?
You got to have your reserves. You need to have your plan. That's probably the biggest one. And you have to commit. Yeah. I think that is the final piece, is being 100% committed. Yep. You're going to have days where you don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Happens to everyone. But those that do get out of bed are the ones that make it in this business, make it to full time, and have a beautiful career.
Yeah. It goes back to that saying that success is just an inside job, right?
Yeah.
It really, really, man, because at the end of the day on it, if you're getting up and you're doing your job, I always look at it, I'm an avid kind of gym guy. And I try to explain to my kids, it's, how do you stay fit, right? And we everyone's relatively healthy. And we do a lot of exercise as a family. At the end of the day on it, what I explain to them is it's not about going to the gym when you want to go to the gym, because anybody can do that. What makes a difference is when you go to the gym when you don't want to. That's how you stay in shape, and that's how you stay fit. And the same applies towards, real estate or any type of sales job. Anybody can do it when they feel like doing it. It's the people that can do it when they don't feel like doing it that really make the difference and get to that end goal that they're looking for.
Absolutely.
So Vin, when we look at these the full-time agents that are coming into the business, I know we have to be able to prospect. We have to have the financial reserves. What's our business plan? Part of it too is the how, right? So even if I know, and we talked about postcards and different ways that you can drive business, but how do I go? Like, what's the juice I need, the gas to get me moving?
So there are definitely different ways to kind of get going. I've done all of them. So I started out as a single agent back in 2016. Kind of fumbled around, got my first deal 6 months into the business. I was on top of the world.
Right.
And then didn't have any other business for a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd you feel? Were you ready to leave?
Oh, I actually did. I let my license lapse.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine in the business got me back up and running. She was the manager at a boutique brokerage. She was actually my real estate instructor that I kept in contact with.
Okay.
She saw my license lapsed, reached out to me, said, come to my office and, we'll get you back up and running. And then I did 2 transactions with a mentor. Then I got too good for my mentor. I had 2 transactions.
You're the man. I mean, I can count them all on one hand. You're fantastic.
Exactly.
Right.
So then I switched to another brokerage. I brokerage hopped pretty frequently in the beginning of my career. My cousin had a team up in North Jersey.
Okay.
Started trying to work with her a little bit. Wasn't working out. I was paying so much money to Zillow every month. To get leads. Got plenty of leads. Didn't get any closings.
Sure.
And then I was recruited by another team, brought to another brokerage, and then switched to another brokerage with the team.
Right.
And now I'm back on my own. But it's really finding those mentors. And my last mentor was amazing.
Right.
I would not have grown the way that I have without doing so. And you get exposed to a lot of situations that you would never see as the solo agent that works from your parents' basement. That was me.
You know what? As you're kind of talking through that, I'm looking at today's environment, right? You came in 2016. It was hard enough then to get acclimated.
Yeah.
And now you have agents that are really having a hard time.
Yeah.
I read a statistic the other day that only 8% of real estate agents nationally have done 4 or more deals so far year to date.
Yeah.
Like it's a challenge right now.
Absolutely.
And, my experience in sales is when you have a challenging environment, you and I both know it's an opportunity, right? To gain market share. So we're focused on that. We're like-minded like that. But I think the worst place anybody can be is on the island right now.
Absolutely.
You can't be in the basement trying to grind this thing out on your own. You need to band the lifeboats together, and you need to work together as a team to get that energy and that spark and that education to drive it forward.
Absolutely.
So now if someone was out there right now that wants to come in as a part-time agent or looking to make a full-time change, or somebody that is struggling right now, what would be the best way to reach out to you, Vin?
Definitely by my cell phone, 732-567-4147. I'm great at answering it. That's a beautiful thing about being a real estate agent. Even if the number says spam, you answer it because it's probably an opportunity.
Well, there's a one-on-one for everybody, right? You know what? And I think you'd be a great mentor for people. You got a really good spirit about you. You're a nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
And you know what? If anyone needs something out there, you should reach out to Vin. You have any questions? You're open to calls from anywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if someone's in California listening,
yeah,
you still can point them in the right direction.
And if I can't help you, I sure as hell can find someone that will.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, Vin. I know you're busy. You got a lot going on.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate all your insight on full-time, part-time, and everything like that. And we appreciate everyone out there that's listening. Thanks for listening. Greg Wareham with Your Mortgage Process. We got Vin Frana.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks for being on the show today. We look forward to catching up with you next week, everyone. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Your Mortgage Process, hosted by Greg Wareham, produced by Greg Wareham and Nick Pavis at The Social Rift, and executively produced by The Social Rift. Thank you again for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.